It's Visual Journal Friday. I'm starting this new series. It's going to be released every other Friday, called Visual Journal Friday. It's named after a practice that we have in my high school art class where we visual journal every Friday. I have been visual journaling since 2005 when I attended a workshop with the Journal Fodder Junkies, Eric Scott and David Modler. Once I attended their workshop, I was hooked, and I bought an empty sketchbook from them that day and started visual journaling while attending the rest of the workshops at the conference I was at, and I have been visual journaling ever since. I have made a visual journal about every year. I'm working on my 11th book, but in the meantime I have also done two collaborative journals with a friend and a couple of altered books as well. So what is visual journaling and why is it different than a sketchbook? A visual journal is a place to put your thoughts down if you are not necessarily a verbal thinker. So it is a place where you can vacillate between visual thinking and verbal thinking. You can take notes for meetings. Maybe you doodled in math class when you were in high school. If you did, this is probably the approach for you. Visual journaling is a way to sort of brain dump, to try new ideas, to practice your art, but also to take notes and brainstorm. It is a place for to-do lists and recipes and whatever you feel like putting down there, song lyrics, meditation mantras, but it is artful and it is a combination of and a melding between the visual and the verbal. In any way you want it to be, there's really no rules other than it should be a daily practice if you can possibly do it. It will help you to learn to be more free with your art because it becomes a personal space that you don't have to share with anyone, but the more you do it, I would almost guarantee that you become more and more proud of your art because it becomes more unique and relevant because you are being so candid in that personal space. I find that my students do much better art in their visual journal than with the assignments that I give them because they're personal expressions and also they feel like it is their own space where they're not going to be hanging it on a wall if they don't want to, so they feel a little more free to put themselves out there. So with that being said, let's get to it and let's check out another book. All right, got my coffee. I'm gonna check out the first visual journal that I ever created. This book means the world to me, and as all my visual journals do, they are a really awesome way to look back on what was going on in my life at the time, what I focused on, what worried me. It's a great way to see how your worries and anxieties don't mean anything in the long run, and it's also a great way to see how goals can be accomplished because time feels fleeting when you look back on it, and I can see that there are things I accomplished that I was working hard on in this book that I've long achieved and conquered. So the visual journal, this visual journal, I got a sticker from the Journal Fodder Junkies, which were the guys that first introduced this technique to me. I've got an emblem off of my first car I ever owned, which I was still driving at this time, a little Chevy Cavalier. I don't remember what year it was, but I had to get it repainted before I sold it, and I had to take that off. And we got some other random stickers. Bun is my maiden name, so I was married at the time, but still sort of referred to myself as that because a lot of my friends referred to me as Bun. So I just labeled my book, that's all that means. You can see that it got pretty thick over time, and the pages are slightly warped and worn out. Let's open it up and check it out. So I've got some pictures of myself here. For all my visual journals, the end covers, the inside end covers on the front and the back tend to be pretty hefty in intricate detail, just because that's a great place for me to slap extra stuff that I find. It ends up being a really layered, thick collage. But here's the start date. I would suggest you always write down the start date in your book. Also, I make my students write this oath to themselves at the beginning of every book that they start. It says, "I solemnly swear that from this day forward I shall never again be caught without a journal during my waking hours, and also that I shall use it faithfully every day." And then I wrote below it 5-minute minimum. And here's some more notes from a handout that they offered in their workshop. And take me with you, just trying to tell myself to take this book with me. This second spread, my notes from their workshop. This paper that I glued in was a little exercise that they had us do. So here's a close-up of that activity, ranking the shapes, then finding out what they mean after you ranked them. Then we put them into a composition based on their ranking. And then we also did a self-reflection trying to decide why our subconscious might have chosen those shapes based on their subliminal meaning throughout human history. So that was a cool activity, and I try to do that with my students every year. Moving on to this page, just got some random stuff that meant something at the time and still does, but we're not gonna flip through every one and go through all the details. I've got notes about transfers, because they taught us about transfers. This is obviously a blind contour drawing that I did of a notebook. I wrote drill, cool, holes. And apparently I followed through with that idea because I have drilled holes in this book, and at some point there was, not this, but there was a thread that held it together, but I found it to be sort of problematic because I ended up going into this book enough that just bothered me that it was tied together all the time, so I took it apart. This is just a page about Halloween. We went to a party. It was fun. I named my friends' costumes Madam Butterfly, Darth Vader, the Go-Go's, Zombie, and Crow, Raggedy Ann. That's what we dressed up as. This is me trying out a packaging tape transfer, which is a pretty cool technique where you lay packaging tape down on an image and really sort of burnish it into the surface of the image. Soak it in hot water, and then the paper pulp swells and falls away, and you can scrub it away, and the ink is embedded in the tape. Then you can get this really nice transparent image, which is sort of pointless if you put it on white paper, because then it's not transparent again. But I did put some writing and marks underneath it, like the sun, and it's shining through. It's hard to make it still seem transparent, because it could just seem to you that this stuff is drawn on the surface, but it's underneath. I've got words like trepidation, journey, sing, weep, inform, beguile, transparent, plant. Some of it I don't remember what it means. Dreams are decoded. What do your choices have in common? Courageous Courtney. I've got another random sketch. White Sands, New Mexico. That was definitely from a lecture that I was sitting in, also at that conference where I first started this book. I remember specifically him talking about how beautiful White Sands was and how I wanted to go there. And these were some promotional cards that were being given out by various artists, and that really appealed to me as a visual journal page. This also. This was regarding a workshop I went to about National Board Certification. At the time, I was not nationally board certified. I am now. And this was just me learning about the various hoops that you had to jump through. And I really actually found the National Board Certification process to be really rewarding and helpful to me as a teacher. This is a workshop by a mask maker, a Cherokee Indian named Davy Arch. We live very near Cherokee, North Carolina, which is a great resource for Native American history. Just trying out some techniques. They suggested that text itself can be a really nice background and texture for your art. This, I don't know if you can see my hand underneath. Can you see it? Yes, you can. This is another packaging tape transfer where, again, I was just trying to show the transparency of it. So I made a window, which is pretty cool. And also playing with windows here. I've got a window to the next page. Words like balance and anamorphic art, just things I was thinking about at the time. Again, window. Natural beauty, luminescence. Luminescence of the honey through the thing. And this guy's covered in bees. I think these were just stuff I picked out of magazines that I found appealing at the time. Playing around with how you can alter the pages to make the book more interactive. I love doing these little ribbon doodles just to practice directional lighting and consistent lighting with shade. There's just some collage elements that I had laying around. My husband and I worked with a friend, JJ Rudisil, who is a really awesome artist that did these really creepy kid images, and I was inspired to draw some similar creepy kid images. His are so much better than mine. Mine are just me messing around with someone else's style, unsuccessfully. A drawing I did of my husband when he was sleeping, or actually pretending to sleep according to this. We were at a hotel. We were going to watch a friend run a marathon near Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we were hanging out in the morning, and he agreed to let me draw him while he pretended to sleep. This is me planning out one of the first Thanksgiving meals that I ever hosted. We have continued that tradition since 2006. My husband and I host Thanksgiving, whereas for all the other holidays, we end up having to go to their houses. This page is about going to my first marathon, not running in it, just like observing my first marathon. My friend Erica ran in a marathon at Chickamauga Battlefield in Chickamauga, Georgia. This is a map and her time, and it was pretty cool. That's a bunch of pictures of my husband's face because, long story, I found several different versions of his face that he had taken pictures of for an article he wrote, and I printed them out a bunch of times because I thought it'd be cool. And I drew us in bed with all of our cats and our dog. And this was me playing around in Photoshop, and then I printed them out. Some photos of gargoyles with my kitten's head on it, and some artwork by my friend Mike Duggins. And just some other imagery that I put together. I was playing around with some inks. I think they were really vibrant watercolor, and doing that Rorschach Inkblot Testing. This is where my husband was trying to make me understand football, and it didn't work. But I thought it was cool. It looks cool. And I drew the creation of Adam from the Sistine Chapel. These are images of my friends at a dance. We all went to prom together. Got our pictures taken like the kids did. And underneath are some ideas for Christmas presents. That year this was a very financially tough year because that was after the recession, when the bottom fell out of the housing market, and we were struggling. And so I talked the family into making homemade gifts that year. And so those were some of the ideas for my homemade gifts. I drew David. I can draw. There's a close-up of David. I just found that on the floor. I thought it looked cool. These are some notes from a video series called Art 21 that sort of highlights different artists, does interviews with them. This one had Richard Serra and Sally Mann. This is a photocopy of a sketch of a mandala that I did, and then I colored it. And actually this ended up being the final version of a mandala that now is hanging in my house, that is painted on a 3-foot by 3-foot canvas. It turned out really well, large scale. Maybe I'll take a picture of that and include it in this video. Frida Kahlo. This is some stuff about pottery. I don't quite remember, but feel like maybe at the time I was feeling guilty about not following through on pottery, because pottery was definitely something I was very passionate about for a while. That's a photo of me in a sundress at a party. More notes about artists. This is pretty cool. I have a friend whose parents were involved in a program called the African Medical Mission that benefited the community of Itipini, helping bring healthcare to their community. And their fundraiser involved taking miniature versions of these fiberglass horses, and artists painted them, and then they were auctioned off, and the money went to this program. So I got to paint a horse, and this is some imagery from the horse I painted. Donated it. And this is just more of my research. And at the time I was also like sort of obsessed with tabloids, trash magazines. I'm not anymore, but again, this was 14 years ago. And at the time, Nicole Richie was huge, her and Paris Hilton, and she was just so skinny. And studying what was going on in Africa at the time, it just really made me sad that was what's appealing when obviously people are struggling around the world to feed themselves. More imagery of the horse that ended up being auctioned off. I have no idea how much it went for or who it went to, but they auctioned it off. Working on some designs, some paisleys, some henna-looking Mendy stuff. This was the next year. So you can see that this book specifically, I couldn't finish in a year. There's another Thanksgiving feast lineup ideas. Obama, because Obama. Just a reflective page about gratitude, prosperity, abundance. I'm especially thankful for the list of blessings. And this is just a sketch of our garage, because I was trying to figure out how I could fit a pottery studio in it and still fit the cars in it. This was before kids. Now our garage is just full of crap. And the cars don't fit in there anymore. Some black and white stuff, Andy Warhol, Keith Haring, op art. This is sort of a study towards a lesson plan with mandalas. These are patterns from a website called the Henna Page, where you can get henna patterns. And I use them to help my students come up with ideas for filling up their mandalas. And I read and learned about Mendi and got a henna recipe. I actually dyed my hair with henna for a while. I definitely don't look good with red hair though, so don't do that anymore. Just some sketches of objects from observation. Trying to come up with assignments. So an assignment based on form, 2 objects with different forms, an assignment on value, 2 objects from the same object drawn with different lighting, an assignment about designing your own business card, an assignment about color, 2 different objects of different colors, texture, 2 objects of different texture. This I just rewrote a sweet note that I got from my friend Sloan about a thank you note for a painting I did for their twins' nursery at the time. And this is a page about my baby boy, who's now 11. This is not him. That's just an image from a magazine, but it reminded me of him. That's him. Some drawing of pottery forms, because I was still trying to make that happen, or maybe even a sculpture assignment for my students where they used slab-built forms. An assignment with typography, trying to think of a way for them to use typography to make illustration. More notes about the mandala project, which I have ended up incorporating into an annual assignment with my Art 2 classes. Also, this is just, this, if you can see, there is a reflective lens here that is off of an old overhead projector. You remember the overhead projectors where the teacher wrote in the vis-a-vis pens that she had to spray and wipe clean. There was the acetate that rolled across. It was somebody's job to clean the acetate every day at the end of the day. An assignment on color. I don't know what I was thinking other than color. Proportion portraiture, complete the portrait. So you would start with an incomplete something and you'd have to finish it. Point of view, drawing something from an interesting point of view. Facial expression. Our town, every year artists paint bears, and they're sponsored by local, I wonder if there's a better picture of it here. Sponsored by a local business, and then they're auctioned off and the money goes towards the town. My high school at the time that I was teaching at, we did a bear based on Andy Warhol. This is a page that I would like to explain in some depth. This is where I think that visual journals can be super therapeutic. At the time, I was having some strife with someone, and I needed to let out that anger, that hostility. And the way I did it was I just let loose, and I drew and I wrote some really horrible thoughts down, and I crumpled it up and I physically mangled it and got my anger out. And then I encased it in the papers around it and stapled it shut so that it would forever be hidden and private. And then I washed it with a beautiful soothing color of blue and wrote some really nice words on top that helped me to get over it. Flow, calm, peace, serenity, wash it away. And then I still ripped away some pieces to look like it was being clawed at, but also just to reveal so I would never forget that I did feel that way, because you don't need to forget things completely or pretend like they never happened. But this definitely helped. Just that whole process of getting it out and physically dealing with it and symbolically soothing it really helped me. And I encourage my students to do similar things, and I have seen them do it. Oh, boring educational mapping stuff you don't want to know about. Notes from meetings that did not get arted on enough. I love this page. So this was during the election time, September 8th, 2008, and September 1st, 2008. This is one of my favorite elections between two amazing candidates. I will not get political and tell you who I voted for, but I read both articles about both men and followed their candidacies very well, and I wrote lots of stuff on here regarding the qualities of both characters, and I just feel like it was a really nice way to process the information. My husband wrote a book called The New Kingdom, and I worked on some sketches for book cover ideas. That's just blind contour, and that's just doodles. There's a better picture of the bear haul. So this was my very first bear for our town, Hendersonville, North Carolina. I have done probably 6 or 7 with my students over the years. It's a fun activity. Very rewarding. It's Pablo Picasso. This is the upside down technique that I have some of my students, well, my beginning art classes do the upside down technique, where you turn an image, a line drawing upside down, and try to draw it, transfer it. You sort of reveal just a little bit at a time, draw it, reveal a little bit more, draw it, and it helps them to draw from observation. So this is the beginning of some notes I took on a project that I developed called the Tree Project that I do with my second level art students. And it is not really a lesson in learning to draw trees as much as it is a lesson in learning to get to know your subject. So they draw a tree from memory, they draw a symbol of a tree, like a lollipop tree, and then they actually draw from observation. They do some tracings of a leaf and do a value scale with it. They look at some poetry and drawings of trees online. I read them some stories like the Giving Tree, and also this cool story that I found on the internet by a woman named Melanie Ford Wilson that just talks about what it would be like if on a full moon trees uproot themselves and party at night when no one's looking. It's pretty cute. I have them draw trees from different perspectives, close up, landscape centered in the composition, as well as like an interesting point of view, as if, I don't know, from underneath, or maybe the tree's been chopped down so you see it in a different way. This has nothing to do with that. It's just a doodle that I did over and over again, which turned out pretty cool. I like it. I was playing with my face on a scanner, and it resulted in that, and that's just some glue gun mess, which then prompted me to write lyrics from the song Spiderweb. And this was just out of a magazine. I thought it was cool. That was a transfer of my son's face from a photograph. I drew over some notes because they were boring notes. I don't even know what they were. Art supply wish list, it says. I drew this weird, scary worm creature. Not from my imagination. It was apparently, it is a type of dragon called a naga from a book on how to draw dragons. More notes, staff business meeting. Picture of me and a student. This says a special affirmation for my friend who shall remain nameless. Doodles. Just messing around with a ribbon shape. It says diamonds on the soles of her shoes. I love that song. Paul Simon. These are two attempts at developing an image of myself from a pinhole camera. Halfway through this book, or towards the end of me creating this book, I transferred from one school to the other, transferred to the school I'm at now, which had a photography program, and my other school did not, so I was sort of trying to reteach myself how to do darkroom photography. This is a pretty poor attempt, but there's a ghost image of my face right there. And over here, there's just a random thing that says, and then there was one what? One world, one humanity. Quotation marks, and all the world will live as one. Imagine, no heaven, no hell, no country, no religion, nothing to kill or to die for. Peace symbol. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope one day you will join us and the world will live as one. And then, totally different, I wrote down all the lyrics for Danny California by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I don't know why. And there's a bunch of pictures of me. So again, this was from 2005 to 2008. This was me learning to visual journal. This was my first visual journal. So bear with me. The next ones, you will see some growth. Bunch of stickers on the back. Cool. Thanks for checking it out. I hope you check out more, because I have a whole decade's worth to go, and believe me, they just improve with time and with practice. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe. I will make a playlist for all the Visual Journal Fridays. Every 2 weeks on a Friday, you will see a new Visual Journal Friday video. Bye. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe. Click the bell icon in order to get more notifications. And don't forget to check out my paintings and my merch, like this shirt, on hoelscherart.com. Bye.